I mentioned that I like to conduct holy name retreats. So after many years of conducting holy name retreats all around the world, I started realizing one day that we can make so many endeavors to get on deeper levels of chanting, but if we don't at the same time parallel work on our false ego and we try and subdue and dissolve it, then our chanting can be compared to an elephant taking bath. What is the elephant doing when he comes out of the water? He simply takes the dirt and throws it all back on his back. So that's what we do, because we are so trapped in these false ego patterns of behaviors. So after making all this endeavor to get on deeper levels of chanting, we slide back into these patterns of behaviors. And as we know, Mahaprabhu told us, Trinadapi Sunichena. So only if we actually chant the holy name in a humble state of mind, only then we can actually receive all that benefit, all that power which the holy... Yes. And then also interestingly, the bigger the false ego is, the less we recognize it. You would think it is the other way around, that the more prominent the false ego is, the more obvious we can see it. But no, it's like that. The bigger it is, the more it blocks our ears, blocks our intelligence. We can't hear, we can't understand. And in this regard, I came across a funny little situation where one lady in the West, she has a very prominent, dominant false ego, and as a result, she always gets herself into tension and conflicts with other devotees. So at some stage, she became a little frustrated, and she turned towards me and revealed her heart. And I was thinking, let me try and give her some little idea what the problem is. So I was very careful. I simply said, yeah, well, the false ego always gets us into trouble. So it was interesting to see how she reacted. She was laughing, saying, come on, false ego, what's that? I don't have that. That's what she said. I don't have that. And I was thinking, my God, I wish I could say that about myself. And how is it possible, if we are so tortured by the false ego, to think we don't have a false ego? Yes. And very often I come across this, even when I show people this book, then they say, oh, false ego, I don't need this, I don't have this. Oh my God, that is really the neophyte understanding. But as we become more purified, we realize more how every day the false ego gets into our way. So subtle. And once also some years ago, I gave the seminar in Vrindavan here at the temple in the Balaram Hall. And then afterwards, one Mataji came up to me and she said, oh, thank you for giving the seminar. Now I realize I actually have a false ego. After 20 years of practice, she had not even realized. And she was saying, yeah, for so many years I thought this is just some philosophical, theoretical thing which is not relevant for me. That's what she was thinking for 20 years, even though chanting and reading Prabhupada's books, everything. But that's the situation, because it is so subtle, we often miss it. Yeah. And yeah, With false ego, we cannot go back to Godhead. No chance. You know? Yeah. The subtle body of mind, intelligence, false ego has to be fully transformed and spiritualized. So the false ego has to be transformed into the real ego, which is Jiva Srupa Krishna Nityadas. I am eternal servant. That deep identification has to become awakened. Otherwise, with false ego, we cannot go back to Godhead. So it requires quite a bit of internal work. Yeah. So yeah, let us understand. As we mentioned, false ego is the most subtle part of the subtle material body, right? Mind, intelligence, false ego. And it's so subtle that we hardly even perceive it. So, and interestingly, false ego starts acting already at very young age. Very young age. Even before we can talk, the false ego pushes us, you know. I remember once I was visiting one family and their daughter was 1 year of age. She couldn't talk yet, but she could walk. So while I was sitting in the lounge room talking to the parents, the girl was bringing all her toys from her room into the lounge room. And I didn't give it much attention and importance. But then the mother said, "Oh, she is showing off her toys because you are here." And I was thinking, oh my God, already at 1 year of age, this starts, you know, that we want to show off. Look at me, my toys are so special, and that's why I am so special, you know. Yes, at that young age, even before then, you know, anybody who has children has that experience. You know, even if when they're a few months old, they make some tantrums, they want their desire, you know, to be fulfilled, and it's a whole ego battle between the parents and the child, you know. So this is already false ego torturing us, you know. Yes. So basically, in a nutshell, false ego makes us think to be something which we are not. That's false ego, you know? We think ourselves to be something which we are actually not. So instead of identifying ourselves as eternal servant, we think ourselves to be so many other things. So, and it starts at young age. I'm a boy, I'm a girl, I'm Indian, Russian, German, American, whatever. Then when we grow up a little more, we think I am student, I'm medical student, and you know, whatever, engineering student, this, that. And then as we grow up more, we accept so many other designations. We may get married, so now I'm wife, I'm husband, I'm mother, I'm father. There's that. So many designations we accept. As life goes on, the layer of designations becomes thicker and thicker, right? And of course, we all play so many roles in our life, right? In our family, we play a certain role. Then at work, we may play another role. Then at the temple, we play a different role. So we play so many roles, and we can compare them like caps or hats we are wearing at different times. But usually, I hope at least, we don't identify with a hat, thinking that's me. No, I'm just wearing it at certain times, right? So, but we identify with these roles, and we think this is me, right? So my question to you, what do you think? Why do we identify with these roles? What's the root cause? Of course, bodily identification is one thing, but then there is one reason. Why do we identify with these roles? Why? Come on, think. Don't just sit there and sleep, but please think. What makes us identify with the roles? Huh? Nobody has a clue? Huh? What? Yeah, that's the ultimate reason, but there is a more immediate reason. Why do we identify? Yeah. Well, yes, of course, that's what we're talking about, but no, why do we identify? Yes? Huh? Yes, we enjoy that role. There is some subtle recognition. I am somebody. It gives us a sense of importance. And that's what the false ego wants to enjoy. This sense of recognition, of being somebody, right? Yes, that's what makes us identify. If we are free from that desire to enjoy that recognition, that importance, then we will just execute the role, in our mood of service. We will not identify. But because we like to enjoy this recognition which comes along with it, that's why we get attached and we identify with it. Yeah. So good to clearly understand. Yes. So, and I mean, sometimes, we have that experience. I mean, I've been around in ISKCON for 40 years full time, so naturally you observe things. So let's imagine if we have some position, we are the temple president somewhere, and then one day the GBC comes or the National Council member comes and they say, "Oh, Prabhu, we were thinking maybe somebody else should take the post." So, if we are simply humble servant, then this will not be a problem, right? Then we will say, yes, okay, no problem. All I want to do is serve. And I thought I can serve you all as the temple president. But if you have some other suggestion, please let me know. All I want to do is serve. So then this will not be any tension, any conflict, nothing. Right? But unfortunately, it usually doesn't go like that, and people are hanging on to their posts. They don't want to give up. Sometimes there's a whole conflict, this, that. Why? Because of the false ego wanting to enjoy this recognition. Yes, that reputation, the fame, facilities, whatever comes along. So this enjoying spirit makes us attached, especially false ego wants to enjoy this sense of importance, Yes. So, and that, after observing these things for so many years going on, I was also scratching my head thinking, how is it? I thought the Shastra is promising detachment. So, but how is it after so many years of practice, we are still so attached to title, position, and, Yes. So, and that's also what made me wonder. Obviously, we are missing something here, something we are not doing properly. Otherwise, after 30 years of practice, this should not be there, right? Yes. So, and that was another reason which inspired me to dive more deeply in this topic of false ego. Because in Krishna consciousness, we can easily miss the whole point. We can nicely feed and boost the false ego and pamper it and massage each other's false egos, all in the name of Krishna consciousness, instead of subduing and dissolving it. And it's massively going on. But like that, we cannot develop pure bhakti. We cannot go back to Godhead. No. Actually, in the Nectar of Devotion, I think it's 12th chapter, Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement. When I read this the first time more consciously, it really shook me up. And Prabhupada is saying, as long as we desire to become a more and more important person, either in a material sense or in a spiritual sense, as long as we have that desire, we cannot really relish the sweet taste of pure devotional service. When I read this the first time, I was thinking, my God, I want to taste the real thing. I don't want to taste, just the false ego gratification of becoming a more and more important person in this world. No, I don't want to taste that. So that means I have to give up my desire to become a more and more important person in this world. Otherwise, what do I taste? False ego gratification, Yes. So we should all keep this in the back of our minds, because aren't we all trying in our own little ways to become a more and more important person? I think we do, right? Yes. If we are a little honest, then we do. So that has to be given up if we actually want to taste the really sweet taste of devotional life. Yeah. So, and I mean very clear, if we think ourselves to be something which we are not, obviously we cannot be peaceful. There has to be some anxiety there, because we are trying to pretend to be something which we are not, Let us imagine, all right, you have a wonderful school here. Let us imagine we are the cleaner in the school here. That's our position, we are the cleaner. And then one day we say, I'm actually the director. So that would be a lot of anxiety. How do I make everybody believe that I'm the director? And what if they find out that I'm actually not the director? My God, you would have sleepless nights, right? So, and then after a few days you say, I was just joking, I'm actually just the cleaner. Thank God, what a relief. I don't have to try and be something which I'm not, right? Yes. So, and that's the cause of anxieties in this world, because we are trying to be something which we are actually not, Instead of just accepting our humble position of being just servant, insignificant, tiny insignificant, We're trying to be something great, and this controller, enjoyer, proprietor. This has to bring so much anxiety, because we're simply not acting according to our real position. you know. Also in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada gives this nice analogy. He says life in the material world is like a nonsensical stage performance. I really like that expression. Prabhupada's word combinations are sometimes very unique, very sweet. Even that's a reason why every devotee should learn English. I hope he's translating that there in the back, to relish Prabhupada's English, you know. As soon as you translate, Prabhupada's special sweetness of his English is lost. I never read the Bhagavatam in German. No, it sounds all really strange and weird, you know. Yes, at least to my ears, you know. But when you read it in English, it's Prabhupada's English, how Prabhupada speaks, you know. So every time you translate, you lose that special sweetness. So that's a reason in itself why every devotee should at least speak enough English or understand enough English so we can read Prabhupada's books in English, you know. Anyway, let's go back to the nonsensical stage performance. That's such a nice way to describe life in the material world. So we can imagine every lifetime is like a stage performance, a crazy circus, you know. So one life we are Indian men, and we are running. Oh, I'm so busy, I've got so many important things to do. No time, busy. And then death comes. Curtain closes, show is over. It's all finished, right? It's all finished. And then next life comes. You may be in a German woman's body if you are unlucky. So, and again, running. Oh, I'm so busy. I have so many important things to do. And then death comes. Show is over. Curtain closes. It's all finished. And then maybe next life we are dog in Sweden. You know, dogs also have subtle body, dog's mind, dog's intelligence, dog's false ego, or dogs have a very strong false ego, you know, barking, woo, what are you doing here, get out, this is my property, and, you know, yes. So, and like that it goes lifetime after lifetime, nonsensical stage performance. That's really what it is, you know. So yes, and the false ego is which entangles us in this nonsensical stage performance, you know. So, and our process of Krishna consciousness is meant to free us from this crazy circus here, you know. And I mean, this is an interesting thing to understand. At the moment of death, everything which is now so important to us, you know, all the things which we take as being so important at the moment of death, they have no significance whatsoever. It's all finished. The only thing that we are allowed to keep is my relationship with Krishna, because that's an eternal reality. That's actual reality. My relationship with Krishna, you know. But everything else is just part of the crazy circus, part of the nonsensical stage performance. So it's good to keep that in the back of our minds. Sometimes, you know, when I'm in some tense situation or whatever, I make these 2 steps back and I ask myself, is this important at the moment of death? No, not important. And that puts it all in perspective, in actual perspective of what is important. Yeah, so we can say there is these 2 realities. The one reality is the very temporary, flickering, nonsensical stage performance, which is like a dream, actually, a nightmare. But then there is eternal, factual reality of my relationship with Krishna and what's going on in the spiritual world. That's actual reality. So Krishna consciousness is meant to transform our perception of what is reality. Sometimes when I give different seminars in different parts of the world, people say, yes, Mataji, but in the real world, it's like this and this. And I'm saying, hang on, what do you understand under real world? What's for you the real world? Is the real world the spiritual world, my relationship with Krishna? Or do you mean the nonsensical stage performance? Is that the real world for you? So let's define what's the real world. And of course, people usually mean the real world, they mean the nonsensical stage performance, But yeah, we have to transform and spiritualize our vision of reality, right? Yes. Yes, so I want to discuss very briefly one powerful verse from Bhagavad Gita. I put it here on the back of the book. This is 1858. There Krishna gives us 2 choices, 2 options of acting. Choice number 1 is, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. This is option number 1. So let's first have a look at that. What does it mean to act in consciousness of Krishna? What does it mean? What's your suggestion? What does it mean to act in consciousness of Krishna in regards to the false ego? What does it mean? Yes, that we deeply in our heart identify as servant, right? Of course, every email we end with your servant. But actually to be true servant, not so easy. We say this very easily, but then we like to control, we like to enjoy, we like to be the proprietor, So it's not such a cheap thing to actually deeply understand that I am servant, So that's what it means. And not only that, it also means we follow Krishna's instructions and recommendations. So, if we act in such consciousness, then we will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life. Wow, amazing. So any problem can be solved if we are just acting in the consciousness of servant. And in the Bhagavatam we also have the nice analogy how this ocean, this insurmountable ocean of material existence where we are drowning, that shrinks to the size of a hoofprint of a calf filled with water. So this insurmountable ocean becomes as small and insignificant as a hoofprint of a calf, not cow but calf. filled with water. So if you go for a little walk here and you step over a footprint of a car filled with water, do you feel this? Will this be a big trouble for you? No, it will not. You will not even notice. You know? So yes, by Krishna's grace, this insurmountable ocean of material existence becomes easily to step over, you know, like hoofprint of a car filled with water. No problem. Yes. So that's the option number one. So, and then Krishna continues, but if, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Yes. So this is a very practical thing. I mean, of course, ultimately we will be lost at the moment of death because we have to take another birth. But even so many times before then, we will be lost. So this is a practical thing. We can reflect on our life, looking back. So every time we were in some not very pleasing situation, some tension, some conflict, some disappointment. So now when we reflect and look back, if we are a little introspective and honest, we can see, yes, I was acting through false ego. I wanted to show off. I wanted to be the hero. I wanted to be the one who knows it better. And I wanted to get some little recognition or whatever, you know. So at that moment, we may not be able to identify. But now looking back, we can see, oh yeah, no, I'm not surprised that I experienced some suffering there, some misery, because I was acting through false ego. Right? Yes. So, and even in our daily life, whenever we find some unpleasing situation, some tension, some frustration, we can make these 2 steps back and ask ourselves, what am I trying to do here? Am I trying to be the enjoyer and controller, or am I acting as humble servant? Right? Very simple formula, but you will see, yes, I don't act as humble servant, and that's why I'm frustrated. You know? Yes, yes. Yeah. Let us imagine a little example. We are a traveling preacher, we visit some temple, we are scheduled to give the Sunday feast lecture, but then unexpectedly some Maharaj comes, unexpectedly. So then the temple president says, or maybe he should give the Sunday feast lecture. So if we are in a humble servant mood, we will say, yeah, no problem. All I want to do is serve. Whether I speak or I hear, it's all service. So let me serve by hearing instead of speaking. Will not be a problem, right? But if we are attached to enjoying sitting there speaking, and then we don't get that gratification, then we will be frustrated. Or what is this? They invited me, I came all the way, and now I cannot even speak. I'm not going to visit here again. You know, we will get all agitated. So again, false ego is there, you know, yes. Yeah, so it's a very simple formula which we can keep in the back of our mind. To be servant solves all the problems in life. It really works that way, you know? Yes, yes. But so often we find ourselves in the situation where we don't want to be servant, but we don't even see. And this is why we need a counselor. Yesterday, when I introduced the books, I was mentioning the importance of having a counselor, especially when it comes to false ego, or yesterday we discussed envy. So these topics are very subtle. By the way, false ego, envy, they're good friends. They like to move around together. So root cause of envy is, of course, false ego, because we said yesterday, we want to enjoy. So we are thinking we are the enjoyer. We don't understand, we are simply humble servant. And then as soon as we want to enjoy, the envy comes, So that's how they're connected. Yeah, so very simple formula that every time you find yourself in a miserable situation, you look back and see. And yeah, as I mentioned, we need a counselor to recognize, because very easily the false ego whispers all these things in our ears. Oh, they should not have treated you like this, and we don't realize we are blinded. So we need this well-wishing friend who has no other interest except helping us in our spiritual growth and development, who can point us to the influence of the false ego, who can point out, hey, you're overreacting, hey, you're just wanting that recognition here, you're attached to the position. It requires some intimate, trusting relationship. Otherwise, we will not accept, How often are we in a position where we are corrected by somebody, but immediately false ego rebels? Oh, who are you to tell me? Oh, we defend. Oh, actually, it was not like that, and so this is all false ego. Yes. And unless there's a trusting, confidential relationship, we will not accept. And then very easily it happens that people get offended about something, some conflict, and then they fade away, never to be seen again, often give up Krishna consciousness altogether. Happens so often, If after 30, 40 years you come to the same temple where you were before, you will not even meet so many people from 30, 40 years ago. Of course, some people go to other temples, other countries, but many give up the process of Krishna consciousness, unfortunately. And often the reason it lies in this, that we don't have a mentor, a counselor, who can save us and help us to adjust our practice. So now one more little thing before we ask for questions. This verse, 1858, where Krishna gives us two options, it also teaches us that there are two different motivating forces. There are two different motivating forces. In material life, the motivating force is false ego, ambitiousness. I want to become a doctor, a lawyer, this, that, and the other thing, That's the ambitious false ego motivation. And unfortunately, this we also take into Krishna consciousness very easily. That, we have this ambitiousness. I want to become a sannyasi, a guru, a worldwide traveling preacher, a famous kirtaniya. Social media is like the way to become world famous overnight. Right? Yes. You just have to post some ridiculous photos or statements and you get so many views. Overnight, any fool can become world famous. And yeah, that feeds all the false ego, this ambitiousness. So I'm very careful. Yesterday I shared, I live without a mobile phone. I'm not out there on social media, because it's very subtle. Very easily we fall into this trap of, oh, everybody has to hear what I'm saying, and oh, I've got 50,000 followers, and yes. So this is all very subtle, but that can easily feed this desire of becoming a more and more important person. Yes, risky. I'm not advanced enough. I don't want to fall into that trap. Actually, once one devotee asked me, oh, Mataji, how many followers do you have? And I didn't even know what he meant. I said, followers? I'm not into followers, We chant every day the Shikshastakam that we are not after followers, So I didn't even know I didn't understand what he was asking. And then afterwards I realized, oh, he meant followers on YouTube or Facebook or what. My God. No, sorry, I don't want any followers. Yes. But the social media really feeds this desires. Oh, how many likes, how many views. Oh, my God. I mean, I want to try and get back to Godhead after this lifetime. So I keep away from all these things. My YouTube channel is basically not existing. Nobody maintains it. I don't have time for this, and I don't want to get into this mood of, oh, everybody has to hear what I say, So I'm traveling enough, and everywhere people are posting things, so sooner or later it reaches people if they want to. But I don't make any effort whatsoever to maintain these things, I mean, there is a powerful statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When he was in this world, he did not allow his disciples to post pictures of himself in public, even not on the altar. And what did he say? He said, while I'm in this world, you cannot do this. It will not be good for my false ego. That's what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. So of course he doesn't have a false ego. But why is he saying that? To instruct us. So I'm wondering, what would he say about Facebook? Where people are so keen to post pictures of themselves. Oh my God. Yes. Yes, to have pictures about yourself, the whole world sees it, has a strong impact on the false ego, feeds the false ego. Everybody's seeing my pictures, the whole world. And we don't even realize, it's all in the name of preaching. I'm only preaching. Well, no, let's look a little deeper. What are we doing? We're feeding our false egos, trying to become a famous person in this world. Like that, we cannot go back to Godhead. Sorry. Yes. It's very subtle. So in any case, let's quickly go back to these two motivating forces. One is the ambitiousness. I want to become a guru, a sannyasi, a worldwide traveling preacher, famous kirtaniya, this, that. So that's the ambitious false ego motivation. But then there is the Vaishnav motivation. What's the Vaishnav motivation force? Who can say? All I want to do is serve. All I want to do is serve, whatever it may be. All I want to do is serving. Right? That's the Vaishnav motivation force. Yes. Because that's our actual position, servant. So now interesting to understand, Paramatma is there in the heart. Paramatma is witnessing our sincere and pure desire to serve. And he reacts, he responds, he arranges that all the right opportunities and doors open up to us. Yes. So this is very interesting to understand. In Krishna consciousness, we don't have to chalk out a whole career, No, if we just give ourselves in service, if we sincerely serve, then Krishna will arrange all the opportunities for us to accept more responsibility. It will naturally come to us. Yes. And that's the Krishna conscious motivating force, Yes. And we can see very clearly the first generation of Prabhupada disciples, they were willing to sacrifice their life for Prabhupada, simply serving. And that empowered them to do so many amazing things, Because especially in regards to preaching, if we want to transform people's hearts, we actually need some little empowerment of the Lord. And that we don't get through ambitious false ego motivation. No, we have to have that simple mood of wanting to serve. The more pure-hearted, the more it attracts Krishna's merciful glance upon us. And then Krishna empowers us that we can do something little in Prabhupada's mission, So important to understand, that we should avoid this ambitious motivation of wanting to become famous and getting power and position and title and all this kind of thing. This is not tasting the satisfaction and joy of bhakti. We are tasting false ego satisfaction. Yes. And it starts all promising, but sooner or later, mode of passion, always starts rosy and ends in distress. Something will happen, we get frustrated, this, that, and so on, Yes. So, and of course, saying that, it doesn't mean that the false ego is all bad. No, it has some little good motivation too, because at least it gets us going. It gets us moving. I once heard in a lecture, one initiating guru was saying, false ego has to be given up, but not too quickly. Not before the motivating force of wanting to serve is at least a little cultivated. Otherwise, if we give up false ego motivation too quickly, we drown in tamaguna and laziness, and we don't want to do anything, right? And we can see very nicely how this false ego motivation also has a little good aspect. For example, in married life, false ego motivation is an important motivation force. My wife, my children, my husband, my house. It motivates us to be responsible and dutiful. Yeah. You can see this definitely, at least in the Western world. I don't know about here in India, maybe not so clearly. But in the Western world, you can see the temple cars are usually not very nicely maintained. Because it's just a temple car. But my car, I take very nicely care of my car. I wash it very regularly and service it, and it's not scratched up and all that because it's my car. But if it's just a temple car, I mean, here in India, you may not have that experience because often you have drivers, you know. But in the West, no temple can afford a driver. No, we don't have the money to pay, you know, the wages, the salary for a driver. So, and the driver here in India, he washes the car and services it. But in the West, we don't have the money to pay drivers. So any bhakta, any brahmachari drives the car. And then it gets all bashed around, you know? And nobody takes care of it nicely. Yes. So, you know, there you can see very clearly, or if it's my garden behind my house, oh yes, I'm growing all nice vegetables and flowers. But temple garden is often neglected. Again, here in India, you have paid gardeners. But in the West, we don't have that. It's all voluntary service. Nobody will pay anybody any money to do the garden at the temple, you know, so it's a little different situation. But there you can very clearly see the difference, you know, because if you don't have paid labor to maintain things nicely, you know, that if it's my own property, I take very nicely care. But if it's not mine, if it's Krishna's, I don't take nicely care. So actually it should be the other way around, that it's Krishna's, I give special care. And yeah, my garden, not so important, you know. But yeah, these are just, I can't think of an example now which you may be more easily, you can relate better, you know, in the Indian setting. But in any case, I think you understand my point, right? Yes. So yeah, a little, what? You have a good example? No. So it shows that a little bit of good thing is there in the false ego motivation. At least it makes us responsible and dutiful, right? But then gradually we have to transform that motivating force, you know, and actually come to the motivating force of all I want to do is serve. And I see everything as Krishna's property. Not only, you know, I'm caring for my thing, but no, everything I'm seeing as Krishna's property, and I want to maintain it nicely and serve nicely, you know, like that. All right, I think this is all we can discuss today, since it is 9:15. Is here anybody who was not here yesterday? Do we have anybody in the audience who was not here yesterday? Few people. So then maybe let me quickly say a few words about these books I've published. I was sharing yesterday, I have an Institute for Spiritual Culture. I'm teaching all different courses in Mayapur every year. And now I'm putting these courses in book form, so that the knowledge can reach more people. So each of the 5 books is a 15-hour course. So especially if you're a bit of a preacher, you give classes, very useful. All you have to do is read 1 or 2 chapters, take some notes, all Prabhupada's quotes are in there, it's all completely based on Prabhupada, and ready is your presentation. Very practical. Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This is all about the man, woman, nature's qualities, that they're not equal. They're very, very different. The equality is on the level of the soul, but on the level of the body, there's no equality. We have very different natures because we are meant to play different roles. So this book will make you understand that this man-woman equality actually puts the whole human society upside down. Prabhupada says it all. So we in ISKCON, we have to be clear in this. Yes. And we women have a very powerful energy. Very powerful Shakti. But Prabhupada says we should use that Shakti to empower the men. and not compete with them. But now, because man-woman equality, the women compete with the men. And that's what weakens the men in Kali Yuga. That's why the men become more and more irresponsible and weak. Yeah, it's very interesting to read. Very helpful for married life also. It's a must for every woman to read this book. Then we have Sheltering Relationships. This is all about the importance of having a counselor. I mentioned it a few times, that just having Diksha Shiksha Guru is not enough. We need a counselor, a well-wishing, more experienced friend who can help us to balance our spiritual life and shows us how to move forward. And yesterday's topic of envy, if you missed it, it's in this book also, And there's culture of correcting others, culture of respect, so many important things. Then the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. So I think we have some little clue what this book is all about. Of course, there's so much more in it. And there's a whole chapter on chanting the holy name. How we are meant to chant so it dissolves this false ego. How we are meant to chant in kirtan so we don't feed and boost the false ego and use kirtan to show off. It's also happening massively. Then we have Entering the Grihastha Ashram. This is a handbook for matchmaking. Because here in India, people only look at caste and money. They don't look at devotional levels of compatibility. So very important, because I meet so many unhappy, mismatched couples from Indian families all around the world. I'm traveling. And usually it's the matchmaking, which was not done nicely, and people only give the two half an hour time to talk, so that's not enough. So there's a whole list of over 200 topics which the boy and the girl should discuss in the presence of the parents or matchmaker, counselor, to see, do we have similar goals and moods and tastes and. And last but not least, family life as an ashram, secrets of success. How to actually create the culture of bhakti in our home. Often, married devotees' home life, you cannot call it an ashram, a place for pure devotion, cultivation of pure devotional service, because we don't take proper training. And often our married life, family life is rather mundane, and we just have a bit of japa and kirtan and prasadam, and that's it. But there's so many more things. We have to transform our home life and spiritualize it. And there's a whole chapter on physical intimacy in marriage, how to live this principle of no illicit sex life. There's quite a bit of confusion, and I did quite some research. So I came across interesting quotes and episodes with Prabhupada, which not many devotees have heard. So that adds a different perspective to the whole topic. So if any of you would like to get some books, these last 3 books are 350 each. And the first 2 books are 300 rupees each. Many people get the set. Actually, yesterday, so many students, they bought the set for their parents. We distributed more to the students than to the teachers, surprisingly. So a whole set is 1,650, but you can also take whatever you like. Okay, so this is your last chance to get some books, because I'm leaving today back to Vrindavan. So please, if anybody wants some books, please come forward and we will work it out. Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.
Very beautiful thought-provoking sessions, very important concept. We want to do that. Yesterday's topic on envy and today's topic on false ego. So next time, Mataji will chanting Mahamantra. Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Rama will do for coordinating and writing. जिसको किताब चाहिए तो यहाँ पे आके
So all five is done.
You want all five? So, we might need your help, Peru.
Yes, Mataji. So this boy wants one book.